So we didn't have anybody tapped. So if anybody would like to volunteer, and then we can hold an election for the chair pro tem for today's meeting.
Miles.
Nominate
Okay,
Austin.
Go ahead, Sharon. No.
Barb too. I'm happy to try and run it, and everybody else kind of helps me along. That sounds good. Unless somebody else feels strongly about it.
Great. So it sounds like we have a volunteer / nomination. Do we have a second on that motion?
Second. This
All
is
right.
Barb.
Thanks, Barb. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? None. All right. Thank you, Sharon.
Problem. All right. So good morning, everyone. Let's see. Today is October 10th, and we are here for our Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organization Technical Advisory Committee meeting. We have a statement regarding virtual meetings that's probably included in the agenda. Miles, did you want to add anything?
No changes on that. Same as we've been operating under.
Okay. Ms. Firestone, would you please call roll?
Yes, ma'am. Let's see. Town of Ashland, Miss Amos.
Here.
Hey, Janice, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Let's try again. We have Miss Amos, Charles City County Vice Chair Mitchell, Miss Russell, Chesterfield County, Miss Smith,
Here.
Miss Walker,
Here.
Goochland County, Mr. Goyne,
Here.
Hanover County Chair Vidunez, Henrico County, Miss Smidler,
Here.
Mr. Yor, New Kent County, Miss Inman,
Here.
Miss LeDuc, Powhatan County, Mr. Ciriello, Mr. Shardine, City of Richmond, Miss Clark,
Here.
Capital Region Airport Commission, Mr. Rutledge.
Ma'am.
Good morning.
Good morning.
DRPT, Miss Dubinsky,
Here.
Mr. Wagner, GRTC, Miss Robinson,
Here.
Mr. Robinson,
Here.
Plan RVA, Mr. Bushing,
Here.
Mr. Ariel,
Here.
Ride Finders, Miss Tisdale, Mr. O'Keefe,
Here.
RMTA, Miss Simmons, VDOT, Miss Rhodes,
Here.
and Miss Mueller. That concludes the roll call for attendance, and we do have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Firestone. Next on the agenda is consideration of amendments to the meeting agenda. Are there any proposed amendments to the agenda? Hearing none, we will move on to the next item, which is approval of the September 19th, 2023 TAC meeting minutes. This is a voice vote, or are there any amendments to the agenda or any comments? Hearing, Austin, do you have an abstain or all those in favor of approval? Say aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Yeah,
Any
I'll
abst-
abstain since I was absent.
Okay. Any other abstentions? Right, I just hear Austin. All right, next is open public comment period. I don't see anything in the chat. Ms. Firestone or Mr. Bushing, did we receive anything prior to the meeting?
We have not received any requests to address the group or any comments.
Okay. Not next, number 7 on the agenda is the TAC chairman's report. Nothing to report. We got a full agenda here today. There's a few action items. Number 8 is Unified Planning Work Program Amendment, Reconnect Jackson Ward Planning Grant. This is an action item. Mr. Bushing, please go ahead.
Sure. Thank you. This item is an amendment to the UPWP. So just as a quick background, and I'm going to try and keep all these short today, so we have so many action items. The UPWP is our budget and work program for the MPO, but it is also a document to cover all of the region's transportation planning efforts that are using federal funds. So it serves two purposes. The city of Richmond was awarded $1.35 million in the Reconnecting Communities pilot for fiscal year 22 for the Reconnect Jackson Ward project. That program requires any of the planning projects to be reflected in the UPWP before the funds can be authorized. So an overview of the project, it's just under $1.7 million in total cost. It includes traffic study, NEPA, a concept plan, and some preliminary engineering. The history and archival research about the neighborhood and the kind of the impacts before it was bisected by the Turnpike, philanthropic coordination, and public engagement ongoing through eventual project implementation. So it's a planning study, and ultimately what it's looking at, if you're not familiar, is a cap over 95 between the Jackson Ward and Gilpin Court, so the two halves of the Jackson Ward. So the recommended action from the TAC is to approve the proposed UPWP amendment. A little bit of context, this would just be added as an appendix to cover non-MPO projects, so things that wouldn't impact our budget, but projects that need to be reflected in the UPWP. This was the direction we were given from Federal Highways. We reviewed this just like we would a TIP amendment for consistency with regional planning, and there were no concerns, as this is just a planning study at this phase. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Bushing?
Madam Chair, so moved.
Thank you.
Second,
Any discussion? Ms. Firestone, would you please take a roll call vote?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Amos,
Aye.
Chair Mitchell. He's in the process of joining now.
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Smith,
aye.
Mr. Goin,
Aye.
Ms. Smidler,
Aye.
Ms. Inman,
Aye.
Ms. Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Rutledge,
Aye.
Ms. Dubinsky,
Aye.
Ms. Robinson,
Aye.
Mr. Bushing,
Aye.
Mr. O'Keefe,
Aye.
and Ms. Rhodes.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Thank you. Mr. Bushing, since the chair has joined, am I able to transition back over, or how does the order work?
That is a good question, but I think Mr. Mitchell, if you're willing to take over, I think we can switch that back up.
Yes, go ahead, proceed. I was having
Okay.
issues with my computer for 10 minutes.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. So the next item I have for you is a TIP amendment. These are the annual GRTC updates. So background, the TIP plans out our investments in federal obligations for the next 4 years. As you know, our funding allocations are updated annually with adoption of the 6-year program. So GRTC is requesting revisions, as they do every year, for the TIP to reflect the latest round of allocations. And some of these changes are large enough or add new projects and require amendments. So 2 of the projects are just adding additional obligations and changing around the funding mix. These projects are required to be amendments rather than administrative adjustments because of the size. So GRTC 008, which is paratransit vehicles, it's switching funding from the 5307 to 5339 and increasing the total amount of state and local funding on the project. And then GRTC 056 is renovation of administrative maintenance facilities. And this is just adding additional funding from the current fund sources, so 5307 state and local funds in fiscal year 24. The other three projects that are included in this amendment are new projects. New is in quotes because, as I noted at the bottom of the slide, these were included in the fiscal year 21 to 24 tip, but they were not included in the fiscal year 24 to 27 tip because we didn't have any obligations planned in fiscal year 24 when we had to wrap that up. So this would be adding those new projects in to the new tip as well. So those projects are non-fixed route ADA service, mobility management, which is a 5310 project, and then planning consultant services, which covers a lot of the different planning efforts that GRTC is undertaking, like North-South BRT or the Downtown Transfer Center. So these are adding in those projects. And again, these are all reflecting what's in the approved 6-year plan. So the recommended action for TAC is that the TAC should recommend approval of the proposed tip amendments as requested by GRTC. With that, I'm happy to answer any additional questions. Mr. Mitchell, are you on?
Mr. Mitchell, are you able to?
Add at this point. I'm waiting for a motion from the group.
So moved.
Second.
We get a motion in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 I think we may need a roll call vote. No.
Yes, I'd recommend a roll call since this is
Yes.
a financial decision.
Yes.
And can I ask who made the second? I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear.
Oh, sorry, I did. Janice meaning.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ms. Amos,
Aye.
Chair Mitchell,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Goin,
Aye.
Ms. Smidler,
Aye.
Ms. Inman,
Aye.
Ms. Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Rutledge,
Aye.
Ms. Dubinsky,
Aye.
Ms. Robinson,
Aye.
Mr. Bushing,
Aye.
Mr. O'Keefe,
Aye.
Ms. Rhodes.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
I think you're on stage again there, Miles.
All right, thank you again, Mr. Chair. The next item I have is another set of annual updates to the TIP. This is for the 5310 projects, other than the one that was just included with GRTC's item. So again, funding allocations are undertaken annually. In this case, DRPT has requested revisions to the TIP to reflect the latest allocations for the 5310 program. So there are 4 new projects that are being added. And in a lot of cases, these are really just renumbering and labeling and to some extent. So 2 of these are in Chesterfield County, so mobility management and operating assistance. 1 is in Hanover County, and that's for mobility management. And then the last one is new, operating assistance for Powhatan Social Services. So those are the 4 projects that are proposed. And again, these have been awarded funds through the latest 5310 cycle. Staff also, to be able to keep this within a fiscally constrained plan, we looked at the existing planned obligations that we had for fiscal year 24 to remove. And as you can see, it's lining up with the same project. So Chesterfield operating assistance and capital cost of contracting, Hanover County capital cost of contracting. So a lot of this is just moving funds between different components of the same programs in the same jurisdictions. So our recommended action is to approve the proposed TIP amendments as requested by DRPT. I'm happy to answer any additional questions, and I saw Tiffany's on the line as well, so she's able to answer more questions if there's any as well. And again, this is a roll call vote.
Any discussion? Anyone want to offer a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion that's been made and seconded. I assume that's to approve as presented, correct?
Yes.
All in favor?
Roll call.
Roll call vote, Janice.
All right, Ms. Amos,
Aye.
Chair Mitchell,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Going,
Aye.
Ms. Smidler,
Aye.
Ms. Inman,
Aye.
Ms. Clark,
Aye.
Ms. Dubinsky,
Aye.
Ms. Robinson.
Aye.
Mr. Bushing,
Aye.
Mr. O'Keefe,
Aye.
Ms. Rhodes.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Okay, so I think we're on to the next item there. Is that, if I'm counting right, 11, Transportation Improvement Program Amendments, VPRA. And I think Mr. Miles is up again.
So thank you again, Mr. Chair. So this item is a little bit different. This is two VPRA amendments that are coming up. So VPRA, the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority, has requested some revisions to the TIP. This project is a CMAQ funded rail support. So this is why it's coming through us is the CMAQ side of the funding. So it's the operations for 3 different rail routes which run through the Richmond area, including 6 trains. So I tried to highlight on the, you've seen this before from the presentations they've given us, the Amtrak service. So it's these routes on here, the Richmond, Norfolk, and Newport News service, and the 6 trains that are there. So this TIP amendment reflects the share of the costs that are attributable to the Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Area, RMPA. So it's $144 million over the next 4 years. And that's just the 4-year cost because obviously this is ongoing operating costs. It's a mix of CMAQ funds from the CTB and VPRA funds. So it's very complicated mix. We don't usually see a lot in terms of rail, but this was coordinated with DRPT and with Federal Highways as well. It's been confirmed that this project would be exempt from any air quality conformity considerations. It's kind of outside the scope of what the long range plan looks at, but in general, operations for like GRTC are considered local and programmatic. So we viewed it the same way for this as well. So the recommended action is for the TAC to recommend approval of the proposed TIP amendment as requested by VPRA. In your packets, you have the full breakdown of the funding between the CMAQ and the VPRA funds. So with that, I'm happy to answer any additional questions. If not, this is also a roll call vote.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question.
Go ahead.
This is Dirana, sorry, from Richmond. Miles, on the previous slide where you said that the total cost was the RRTPO share cost, just meaning that it's like physically within RTPO?
Correct. My understanding is they broke it down based on the trains and the routes and then looked at the number of stops that were within the RTPO study area to calculate what our share of that is. Since these are running all the way up to DC and down through Hampton Roads, it was a percentage share of that overall cost of the route.
Okay, and these are CMAQ funds allocated to the state and VPRA, or VPRA is just matching the CMAQ funds?
Correct. So the CMAQ funds and then VPRA has additional funding on top of that.
Okay, thank you. So move that we accept this TIP amendment for these funds.
Do I have a second?
I'll second. Amy.
Miss Janice, can you do a roll call, please?
Yes, Ms. Amos,
Aye.
Chair Mitchell,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Going,
Aye.
Ms. Smidler,
Aye.
Ms. Inman,
Aye.
Ms. Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Rutledge,
Aye.
Ms. Dubinsky,
Aye.
Ms. Robinson,
Aye.
Mr. Bushing,
Aye.
Mr. O'Keefe,
Aye.
and Ms. Rhodes.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Okay, the next item we have is a tip for a third rail track, I guess, leaving Hanover County heading north. Mr. Bushing, can you tell us more about that?
Sure. Thank you again, Mr. Chair. This is the last of the tip amendments, as I promised. I was trying to get through them. So this is another VPRA request to amend the tip. And this one is complicated, frankly. So in general, railroad projects are outside of the MPO process. So railroads generally fall under the Federal Railroad Administration, which puts it outside of our TIP-STIP process and generally outside of transportation conformity as well. However, FRA does encourage rail projects to be included for information and coordination purposes. So we are viewing this as an informational item to be added in the TIP, since whether we add it to the TIP or not has no bearing on whether the project actually moves forward. So the project is the Hanover Third Track Siding C, which is north of Ashland. It's an $84 million total estimate. It would add almost 3 miles of additional track. So the goal of this project is to reduce freight and passenger delays, and it's part of the Transforming Rail in Virginia initiative. It's also part of DC to RVA, which I think we've talked about more at the MPO. And this is using Amtrak capital funds. It's not using any FHWA or FTA funding. So we have looked into this as much as we can, and our view on this project is that, again, it's generally outside of the scope of what we cover at the MPO. This project is in fact included in our vision list, but again, because we don't touch rail funding, it's outside of our constrained plan. The project would not be subject to transportation conformity. It would go through the general conformity process. As part of the DC to RVA record of decision, the total DC to RVA project was determined to have de minimis impacts, and a full-blown conformity determination wasn't needed. So our understanding from this project is that it wouldn't have any impact for air quality either. So with that said, our recommendation is to approve this as an informational TIP amendment. So this would just be an informational item. Again, our approval doesn't have any bearing on whether FRA moves the project forward or not. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. And Tiffany, if there's anything from the DRPT perspective that you'd wish to add, I am open to any additional comments as well.
I don't have any additional comments at this time.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion? And we will entertain a motion.
So moved. This is Barb.
And a second,
It's John O'Keefe. I'll second.
and no other discussion. Will Ms. Janice, will you call the, and Ms. Firestone, will you call the roll call?
Yes, sir. Ms. Amos?
I'm gonna abstain, please.
1 second. Chair Mitchell,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Goin,
Aye.
Ms. Smidler,
Aye.
Ms. Inman,
Aye.
Ms. Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Rutledge,
Aye.
Ms. Dubinsky,
Aye.
Ms. Robinson,
Aye.
Mr. Bushing,
Aye.
Mr. O'Keefe,
Aye.
Ms. Rhodes.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Okay. Off to the next one. Connect the RVA 2045 amendment, New Kent County request. Is that Mr. Miles or Amy?
So this is Sula Barial, and I'll start, and then
Okay.
Amy can go further with that. So good morning, TAC members. This is item 13, Connect RVA 2045 amendment request. This is the second amendment request for Connect RVA 2045 to put the project in the constrained list. So let me see if this works. Okay, so the project is to add an interchange modification at exit 211 on I-64 in New Kent County. The project is basically to reconstruct Route 106 to change to a diverging diamond interchange at I-64 and Route 106. So the existing interchange basically with one lane on each side needs to be added with another bridge, which would be used as one of the bridges. The existing bridges would be used as either northbound and southbound, and the new one would be added as the other bound route. The project cost estimates is around $90 million. And this project has been a priority for New Kent County, and New Kent County has requested RRTPO for the project for the consideration for inclusion in Connect RVA 2045 as a constrained list project. So currently, as it stands in current Connect RVA 2045, the project as a whole does not exist in the constrained list of a project. A component of the project, which is basically widening the bridge, that is listed in the Connect RVA 2045. Staff reviewed the project, and it fits within the vision, goals, and objective current Connect RVA 2045. Project is also reasonably significant based on the project inclusion guidelines. Connect RVA 2045's project inclusion guideline. And if the project wants to seek any regional and federal funding, it has to be in the constraint plan. The project IR interchange access report is underway. Federal Highway is to approve the IR when it's included in the constraint plan. Barb, do you have a question?
On that slide with the location map.
Mhm.
Is it Route 609 or Route 106? I think it might just be a typo.
106.
It's the same thing. I think this is from Google Map, and it
They
showed
just have
one.
it
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah.
Okay. All
No,
right.
it's both. It's one of those that's both.
Okay.
Oh, okay. All right. I
We
just,
refer to it as 106, Route 106.
okay, thanks.
So this is the the graphics on the right is the Connect RVA 2045 consistency workflow. So the project, if it's reasonably significant, if it's not in the constraint plan, it's not eligible for federal regional funding, and it has the LRTP has to be amended so that that project is within the constraint plan, and then it will be eligible. So as we all know, the constraint budget for 2045 is already fixed, and we already have all the project taking up most of the funding available through 2045. So to add a new project to the constraint plan, there's two ways to do that. One is to either add new unallocated funding, any new funding which is not been constrained, any new state, regional, or federal funds which hasn't been constrained in the long range transportation plan. If that's not possible, the other way is to take out some of the projects and trade the new project with those projects. So staff did a research and came up with this solution to add this particular project. So staff identified 4 projects. The one is the widening of 106 bridge overpass, which is basically the component of this project. And then 2 I-64 auxiliary lane projects, which was there in the constraint plan. But now, since we have amended the constraint plan to include I-64, I don't think so this project, if removing this project makes any difference. And we discussed with VDOT, and VDOT is fine with this process as well. The other project is bike-ped project, Courthouse to Courthouse Trail in Charles City County. And that project has been canceled by Charles City County. So this frees up some money. And then we have some surplus funds, around $20 million, which was not, which was there, left as surplus, which was insufficient to fund any new project in the constraint list. So that adds up to some amount. And then Bucky's, the convenience store, which is going to be located in that interchange, around that interchange, has committed to fund $12 million. And all these add up as $95 million, which is enough for the project to be funded. So basically, the action requested to the TAC is that to recommend the RRTPO Policy Board to amend Connect RV 2045 to include a new project, the interchange modification at exit 211 on I-64 in New Kent, and remove the following projects. So basically the widening project, the eastbound and westbound auxiliary lane on I-64, and then Courthouse to Courthouse Trail in Charles City County. So that's all I have. Be happy to answer any questions. But if Amy or VDOT wants to add anything, please go ahead.
I don't have anything else to add. That was great. Thank you.
I just have one question, just make sure I understand. You're not taking any of the money for the I-64 widening. It's the separate project, correct, Amy? I mean,
That's-
I knew that was important to you guys. I just-
Yeah, it's a separate money. The I-64 funding is already been constrained. It's based on new funding allocated by CBTA, as well as the funds, new funds coming from the state, which was not previously there in the constrained budget. So that project is already there. These were additional projects which were there in the constraint plan. These could be the first step. If that widening project wasn't there, this would be the first step. But since we have the whole widening, this project won't be necessary.
Okay. Any other questions? Discussion? I'd entertain a motion.
So moved. Amy.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? If not, Ms. Firestone, would you call roll?
Yes, sir. Miss Amos,
Aye.
Chair Mitchell,
Aye.
Miss Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Goins,
Aye.
Miss Meidler,
Aye.
Miss Inman,
Aye.
Miss Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Rutledge,
Aye.
Miss Dubinsky,
Aye.
Miss Robinson.
Aye.
Mr. Bushing,
Aye.
Mr. O'Keefe,
Aye.
Miss Rhodes.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Okay. Next item we have is the MPO boundary adjustment. Is that Mr. Miles again, or?
I'm going to take care of this as well.
Okay.
So the next item is basically to adjust the metropolitan planning area boundary for the RRTPO. So as we all know, the RRTPO metropolitan planning area boundary, also called as the MPA boundary, includes whole of Charles City, Goochland, Hanover, Henrico, New Kent, and Powhatan, as well as city of Richmond and portions of Chesterfield County. So the remaining portion of Chesterfield County is included in Tri-Cities MPO. RRTPO and Tri-Cities MPO boundary in Chesterfield is based on 2013 agreement, which was done after the census 2010 urbanized area boundary was released. So it's a complicated boundary. It doesn't follow any specific route. It does follow Route 10, then it follows some of the minor road, it follows a stream, it follows the river, but in the boundary has to have some physical location. So some of the portion of the boundary was based on 2010 census block geography, actually 2 blocks. Whenever the new census is done and the Census Bureau releases new urbanized area boundary, the federal requirement is to review the MPO boundary. After that is done, And when the census urbanized area boundary was released last year, both RRTPO as well as Tri-Cities MPO staff reviewed the metropolitan planning area boundary in Chesterfield and found that some of the blocks geography changed from the 2010 census to 2020 census. So based on our conversation, it was we both RRTPO as well as Tri-City MPO realized that it would be easier to have a clean boundary. So RRTPO staff as well as Tri-City staff adjusted the boundary so that it's cleaner, and these would be just administrative changes. There's no change in population based on these boundary or any funding changes. So this map basically shows the RRTPO boundary and then the area where the two blocks was changed. It's based in South Chesterfield County. And if you zoom in this map, basically this interchange, Meadowville interchange, previously, I guess the half of the interchange was in RRTPO, the other half was in Tri-Cities MPO. Now the block boundary changed. So this area, the third quadrant, that would be in RRTPO to make it smooth. And then the other block out here, the boundary was was a little bit north, and then we shifted it a little bit south so that it is cleaner. So no major change in population or any funding. This is just an administrative change. Tri-Cities have already approved this from their policy board. We have to do that same. And then once that is done, we submit this to VDOT, and VDOT would send this to Federal Highway. I don't know if a redesignation is required, but I think for us, it's a pretty simple process. So the action request is basically for the TAC to recommend the RRTPO policy board to approve the adjustment of the RRTPO MPA planning MPA boundary in Chesterfield County. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments, discussion? If not, Chair would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the boundary adjustment.
In a second.
This is Trisha Robinson. I'll second.
And Ms. Barstow, would you call?
Ms. Amos,
Aye.
Chair Mitchell,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Goin, are you back with us? Okay, thank you. Ms. Smidler,
Aye.
Ms. Inman,
Aye.
Ms. Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Rutledge,
Aye.
Ms. Dubinsky,
Aye.
Ms. Robinson,
Aye.
Mr. Bushing,
Aye.
Mr. O'Keefe,
Aye.
Ms. Rhodes.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Here, our next item of discussion is a smart scale update from VDOT. Is that Mr. Riblet?
No, that one's me.
Who's me?
This Sarah, sorry, Sarah
Okay.
Rhodes. Janice, I think I sent you my presentation on Friday. If not, I can share my screen, I think.
Okay, if you could do that, I can pull it up, but I have a hard time sharing it, and Sid has had to step away for just a second. But if you
Okay,
want to
all
try to
right.
share it and let me know if you need me to.
Okay, if you all can let me know if you've seen my screen.
Yes.
Yep.
We can see it.
That's wonderful. All right, now I'm going to run the slideshow. I'm going to switch. All right. I was told to keep this snappy, and the pace of this meeting has done that request justice. So I'm going to go through this as quickly as I can. If you have any questions, please feel free to stop me as I go. But yeah, here we go. All right. This is the current schedule. Final adoption of the new policy update is scheduled for December. So we are in the last 3 months of the Smart Scale update. This began in February. So it has been a lot of discussion and it has moved pretty quickly. Just some insight, the September 20th CTB meeting, slides 4 through 7 give a nice recap of where we are in the process and what recommendations are really on the table. But it helps if you understand the sort of what I'm calling the OIP thought process for how we got to where we are. So the first thing that went out in February was a survey. Some of you may have participated in that survey. That survey resulted in problem statements. Those statements include, like, is there a rural-urban bias? Is there what is the impact of leverage? So on and so forth. All of those problem statements were then analyzed, and from those problem statements, the results of that analysis, recommendations came out. So in some cases, you might have a problem statement with no recommendations. In some cases, you might have a problem statement with 4 recommendations. So that's just the process, the flow of this update. And then at the July CTB Smart Scale retreat, CTB members had what I call a la carte suggestions that have been absorbed into the process, things like additional tiering for applications and so on and so forth. If you look at the September 20th presentation to the CTB, you'll find, I think it's slides 8 through 17 list those a la carte suggestions, some of which are how to strengthen visuals, some of which will actually impact the process. So I recommend looking at the first, 20 slides of that presentation to kind of get yourself oriented for where we are in the process. Okay, so just a quick recap of things I've brought to you previously. Recommendations for round 6 include a reduction in application cap limits. There has been some pushback on this. So current cap limits are 10 and 4, depending on your size. The floor that we've been working with are 5 and 2. I don't think it'll stay 10 and 4, but it may not be 5 and 2. So just think about that as you start planning your applications. Other items that are recommendations we're working with are developing a more proactive project readiness approach and relating project performance to the development of the consensus scenario. So after we complete scoring, there would be a dynamic of relating project performance to which projects are actually selected by CTB members. I'm going to break the fourth wall here for a minute, but those 2 bullet points we have the least information on. So as we go into this public participation process for Smart Scale and the changes, I would highly recommend that all of you ask questions about those 2 bullet points. What will that look like? That'll have a tremendous impact on application development and project selection. Then the last 2 bullet points on this page have to do with the changes to HPP eligibility and the removal of the step 2 from the allocation scenario. For scoring, we're looking at changes to 3 areas: congestion, which is will be revised to have a 10-year future rather than a current day analysis. Economic development, I'm going to talk about that one in more detail today, but changes based on recommendations from Virginia Economic Development Partnership. And then land use and transportation, revising the land use factor to be a scalable factor rather than more of a standard factor. So I'm going to move into the economic development piece now. The recommendations coming out of VEDP only impact ED1. And for those of you who maybe aren't super keen on the Smart Scale lingo, ED1 is the portion of the Smart Scale application that applicants have the most control over. This is where you input the sites in proximity to your project. This is where you talk about what's in your comp plan and so on and so forth. That has a very direct relationship. Applicants put in the information, and that information is what's scored. It is the factor you all have the most control over as part of this discussion. Smart Scale recommendation right now would be to change that in its entirety to follow a more VEDP focused process. So the first thing is all sites that would be eligible would be part of the Virginia scan sites. There's a very robust map on these sites that you can look at. I have the link here. The tiered ED1 focuses on tiered buffers. So the project is located someplace, and then based on the scale of the project, you have a buffer of how much you can kind of pull in to help the score, how much area you can pull in. Larger projects are 3 miles, mid-sized projects are 1 mile, and smaller projects are half a mile. So those buffers aren't going to change, but what sites are eligible to pull in will change. I would note now there is an application process for adding more sites to Virginia Scan. We don't know much about it, but it is something that is out there and available. So here's the scoring process that's being proposed for ED1. So first and foremost, determining which sites are eligible. I discussed that on the previous slide. So it's these Virginia Scan sites, and then you'd pull them in based on the scale of the project and the appropriate buffer. So scoring begins with calculating estimated jobs for the site and capital investment factors. These are formulas that VEDP uses to for their process and determining business ready sites. So this would be you take this information based on the sites that are impacted and plug it into a formula, and that would be 40% to 25% of the score respectively. Calculating site funding factor, how much funding is actually going to the site. The recommendation was these sort of Virginia-based funding sources. There was a lot of discussion about this at the CTB meeting on the 20th, and the types of funding that are going to this site, that definition might be expanded based on the CTB member discussion. But that component would be about 15% of the score. Determining the number of site visits. Site visits is an indicator for how attractive the site is, how marketable it is. That would be a factor into the score. And then calculate site readiness factor. This is a scoring piece that's actually already a component of ED1. Tiered sites that are 5, 4, and 3. There's an additional points value that's applied for those. This would bring additional points for a site at 5 through 1. So any of the sites that have this additional business readiness designation, you could receive additional points from that.
Hey, Sarah.
Yes.
This is Barb. I was looking at that map, the VEDP sites map.
Yes.
And anything that they've got shown on there would is within the project buffer would get you some points. It's not like it's got to meet some other criteria.
Correct. The map is what my understanding is that the map, if it's on the map, it's an eligible site and it will have a scoring impact.
Okay.
I can't tell you it's going to have all of this wonderful Virginia business ready sites criteria. It's not going to have that level. But if it does, it brings points to your project. So
yeah, okay. So if you've got a site on the map and there's no water and sewer to it, you're not going to get this as much readiness points. But if you've got a site that's graded, water, sewer, then you get a lot of points.
More points, yes. The readiness factor, yes, is something that contributes to the score. Estimated jobs and capital investment factors are really the features that are going to add the most to the score. These other things are kind of bonus pieces.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. The 4 steps are then summed into your final ED1 score and then normalized per the smart scale process. Couple of points I would like to make. The first one is this takes the pressure of ED1 off of applicants. So yes, you have less control, but ED1 is the component of the application where we have typically heard the most complaints. It's a lot of work to do ED1, and it's one where VDOT and DRPT cannot help, not in a sufficient way. And so, it is going to change that work effort pretty significantly. Conversely, we did a look at what this would do to the round 5 results. In round 5, a little over 50% of applications have an ED1 score. This takes that number down to 25%. But as I state that, I would note that the nature of the projects in round 6, there is an effort to move towards these larger scale projects that may impact how many projects are impacted by this new scoring piece, what's eligible and where you can apply. There's a relationship between these sort of Virginia scan sites and these large scale project locations. So I just would like you all to keep that in mind. All right. Next week, right? Oh goodness, yeah. Next Tuesday is the CTB workshop. That's the ball game. We're going to see all the recommendations laid out for the first time at that meeting. And then we have a virtual town hall in late October. Please take that opportunity. I know there's letters on the agenda today, but please take that opportunity to ask very specific questions for this process. As I said, final CTB action is December, and then the VTrans needs will be complete in January of 2024. And that's everything from me. Are there any questions? Ms. Amos?
Hi, Sarah. So I work really closely with VDP on some projects here in town and to getting them on the Virginia scan. And my concern that I hope that some VDOT and VDP people can sit down and talk about is that by the time it gets on Virginia scan, we should have applied for smart scale 4 to 6 years ahead of that. And so when it's on Virginia scan, it's ready to be developed. And in most cases, it's going to be opening in 18 months, which puts a lag, kind of like the Goochland 64 diverging diamond. You know, you kind of have your economic development project before your infrastructure. And it would be nice if we could figure out a way that it's not scoring so high that you're not able to put that infrastructure in advance so that you're ready, so that it's kind of happening at the same time that the project's being built. So hopefully VDOT and VDP can figure that out.
Okay, I'll make a note of that. I don't recall hearing the lag time issue, Nora, but I think it's something that we certainly need to bring back to OIP and see if they've addressed those concerns.
Any other discussion? Comments, questions? I like the point that Nora pointed out, because in my past, I've seen where, you know, you get an economic development project. I'm thinking of when I was in Warren County, Tory Plastic of America came in and they wanted all this stuff, but the county, the infrastructure, and we didn't have water and sewer to the site, and they'd already put money down onto it. So, I mean, it worked out, but it was a lot of scrambling and gnashing of teeth, so to speak, in terms of getting that there. There's no other questions. Do we need a motion on this, or is this just an update? Correct?
This is just an information item today.
Okay. So.
Thank you, everyone.
Next item is Mr. Bushing again, Public Transportation Work Group.
I believe there's one other item on there, another smart scale item. Let me.
RTPO letter regarding smart scale program updates. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this is sort of a follow-up to the previous presentation. So we have received a request from one of our member localities to have the RRTPO send a letter to the secretary and the CTB, basically opposing some of the changes that have been proposed. And the primary change that's included in that letter is the application limits. And so that letter is included in your agenda packets so that you can read it. But obviously the proposed changes, as Sarah has done a great job in informing us on, will have implications for the numbers and the types of projects that are funded in the region. So this is sort of our opportunity, given the timeline with a December approval by the CTB. This is our opportunity to get it to the policy board in November, so we can actually have some input on this as a region as a whole, rather than just each individual locality. The other thing that I've included in the packet is the letter that the Virginia Association of MPOs has already sent. So VAMPO sent a letter earlier this year, also opposing some of the changes from a general MPO perspective. And beyond the application limits, some of the other key concerns that were brought up in that letter was the limited engagement with MPOs in terms of developing the changes, the eligible project types for the high priority projects, which excludes most of our transit or regional trails projects, a lot of the things that we have in fact applied for in recent years as the MPO. And then also the redistribution of the land use goal in terms of what category should that go to. So it's going to safety and congestion, but should it go to access or should it go to environment? Like there are other places that could land, which would be more consistent with the regional long range plans. So those were the concerns that the MPOs expressed in their letter. So the ask for TAC today is to review the letter that's in the packet, and I can pull that up on the screen if it's helpful. And then to propose any additional revisions, any other comments that we want to add that staff can add to the letter before it goes to the policy board for approval in November. And then once the policy board's approved it, we can submit it with the chair's signature to the secretary and OIP, so everybody knows that the Richmond region shares these concerns broadly across the board. So that's the discussion. This is really just intended to be discussion so you guys can provide direction for staff to refine that letter before it goes to the policy board.
Any questions or concern? Discussion? Yeah, we have a couple questions. Nora?
Miles, kind of to my other point, I really feel like there should be more discussion about removing land use. I know you had talked about land use being in other things, but you didn't mention economy or the economics of the project. And I think that should continue to play a role in that category, because I think land use and proper planning is what smart scale should be based off of, not because we have a tiered site. It took us a year and a half to plan and prepare for that, but that was based off of land use. That's just way too late in the game, I think, for transportation planning, and I'm not sure that the economic development folks understand how long it takes a transportation project, especially through smart scale, to get funded and then planned for, funded, and built. So I'd like, if you can, just put some verbiage together that land use should be a part of the economics conversation. I'm fine if, you get extra points for it being on Virginia Scan or a tiered site, but they shouldn't take away land use completely.
Austin?
Yeah, so I'll make 2 points from Goochland's standpoint. We are wholly opposed to the reduction of the application limits. 2 is certainly not anything that would be beneficial for the region, for the small localities. I mean, we're looking forward to work kind of hand in hand with Henrico County, Sharon and her team, with getting projects that were identified in the IAR for the gate and interchange funded and moving forward. In fact, there are 3 of our CVTA applications and probably going to be at least 2, if not 3, assuming we still have 4 application slots for smart scale. So that's really, I think, impacting the regionalism of these 2 bodies and getting those large, expensive projects funded. The second thing, kind of contrary to what Nora was saying, is that the land use category, I think, is a little concerning from our standpoint, that we noticed there were some projects that scored at or near 0 in all categories but land use and were funded. So they're not really solving a need other than their location near sites or the density around them, but there weren't congestion benefits or safety benefits or anything like that. I don't recall exactly where those projects were, but we just noticed that was a concerning thing on our end. We are happy that the congestion factor is going to be looked at a little more proactively, looking 10 years into the future. I think that's something that will be well received. And that's something that Goochland does support as far as one of the changes.
Okay, Barb?
Something that was really valuable for us to look at was provided by OIP, where they used round 5 projects and tested these changes on the projects and put together a chart that shows, and Sarah can explain it better because it's a little specific. They didn't do it for all of the projects. The chart is just showing projects, I think, that were in the funding scenario that either, well, projects that either fell out of the funding scenario or were added to the funding scenario for each of the changes and measures, and then for all of them combined. And that really, for me, gave a good visual of the impact of the changes, the high priority change, the elimination of step 2. What else did they test? Congestion. I don't think they did anything with economic development because they hadn't decided on that one yet. Oh, in land use. So anyway, you might want to take a look at that. I think you can find it on the CTB website, and Sarah can tell me if that's not correct. And you know, I would encourage everyone to really take a look at the changes in smart scale and submit individual locality comments as well. But I think it would be good for us as a TPO to submit a comment on what we can all agree on.
And if I may, I think if, you know, if we're not ready to propose any changes right this second to the proposed letter, what we can do is everybody has it in the agenda now. If you can provide comments back to us and staff can prepare the draft and send it out to all of you before we go to the policy board, I think that's an option. As long as everyone is agreed to the idea that we should send a letter, and at least the application limits is a concern, and then any changes we can review kind of separately as the letter moves forward as we're drafting it. But ultimately it'll go to the policy board for approval. So there would still be the final review there. So I think that's an option because it kind of sounds like we may have some differing views on some of the positions. So I think if everyone sends anything they would want us to include, staff can draft that consensus where we do see broad agreement across all the different jurisdictions and then send that out to all of you before we finalize it and take it to the policy board. And if that sounds good to everyone, we can definitely take that approach.
All right. So that Mr. Miles' discussion there, he outlined that point about everybody kind of looking at it and giving him feedback. I think that's a good idea. And I guess that we don't need to draft any, to take any vote on this. It's just a discussion item. And then between now and when would you say you need those comments at the latest?
If we could get any comments back by next Friday, so is that the 20th? I'm guessing that. I think that's right. I'm trying to calculate off the top of my head, but if you could get it by next Friday, anything that you would want to include in the letter, and we can see which areas there are broad agreement across all the jurisdictions, and then we'll send out the draft to the TAC so you all have a chance to look at it individually as well.
Hey, Miles.
Sound like a plan.
Hey, Miles, if you all have a deadline of the 20th, that is after the CTB workshop. I will try and summarize everything and get them back to Janice for distribution so you guys have the full lid summarized of everything that's coming.
That would be perfect. I appreciate that, Sarah.
Okay. Sounds good. So, Mr. Miles, you have one last item here, I think, the Public Transportation Work Group.
Yes, this is a very quick item. This is just an update. So the TAC last month voted to reconvene the Public Transportation Work Group. It looks like the 25th at 1 o'clock is going to be the meeting date. It looks like that's where we have the broad consensus right now. So we will be following up with formal invitations and agendas, but we wanted to make sure that was on everyone's radar. And again, we'll be focusing more on how we can create a system for the entire region, including the rural portions of our region.
That's good.
That's everything on that one.
All right, transportation agencies, DRPT. Ms. Dubetsky, you have anything?
Yes, I do. Good morning. So I will be sharing my agency update document with everyone. So this will be available, but some main items to note is that we are going to be starting our regional coordinated human service plan meetings starting on October 16th through 18th. They were all virtual, but as a reminder for any one who is planning to apply for FY25 5310 funds, this is a kind of a required meeting in order to kind of get information on the upcoming year and also to provide updates on potential projects you may be applying for. For the Richmond area, I believe that your meeting is scheduled on Monday, October 16th from 1 to 2:30, and the agency update has the links to register for all of the meetings. So there's going to be a total of 6. Something new I do want to note is that as part of the update from last year's Chisholm plan, we did develop a story map version of the plan. So it displays information about regional population, transit data, and it's going to be very much similar to some of the other story maps that the TPO has produced for you all. So I encourage you all to take a look at that ahead of the meeting if you're interested in some of the activity related to the Chisholm plan. Besides that, there's information that was released about 2 weeks ago, but we just launched our mid-cycle grant opportunity for our transit ridership incentive program. The CTB took action on approving some of the policy changes, which included expanding some of the eligible projects that could include 2 new categories. So TRIP already has regional connectivity as well as a 0-hour low-income fare option. So now there's passenger amenities and facilities, and then there's also crime prevention and public safety. So information on that has all been updated on the DRPT website. We also did host a webinar that provides some information from our program manager, Daniel Wagner. The recording is on our YouTube channel if you're interested. All of this to say is that if you're looking for an opportunity to apply and you have questions, please reach out to myself or anyone that you may have contacts with at DRPT. But this mid-cycle grant opportunity will close on October 24th, so you only have a couple more weeks. We will still also have the regular application cycle in FY25 that coincides with our usual grant programs that start up December 1st. So we understand that there's a tight time frame, but there is also a push to move some of these funds that we have sitting in TRIP out. So if there's a project that you have in mind that may be eligible, please reach out to me and I'd be glad to provide any technical assistance. Last thing to note, I'm sure that probably VDOT will mention this, but we want to be able to share that the State Trails Office is moving forward with their statewide trails plan, and they released an online survey. So we provided information in our update to make sure that everyone fills that out. And that is all I have for my updates. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any further questions, discussion? If not,
Tiffany, I just wanted to make sure I had the right date on that for the mid-cycle grant closing.
Yes, it is October 20. Let me make sure I have it. October 24th. Yes, so it'll be a Tuesday.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we'll move on to GRTC. Do you have any reports?
Yes, this is Corey Robinson. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. I'll be providing the agency update today. So GRTC is looking ahead this month on both near and long-term upgrades to the individual routes in the network at large. GRTC's consulting team on the North-South BRT corridor study is preparing to deliver the recommended alignment for the second pulse route at a special session of the GRTC's board meeting that will be tomorrow, October 12th. In technology news, GRTC launched Transit Royale for all riders today, or no longer today, on October 11th, which provides a new and widely used and praised tool for real-time bus information and directions. This is a free app that anyone can download. In network news, the first microtransit zone, which is in the Azalea area, is scheduled to go online for a soft launch later this month. And the 1A extension past Chesterfield Town Center moves closer to launch with every passing week. And then in some staffing news, GRTC announced the elevation of Mike Hurt to the director of our marketing and communications. There's a new hire, Mark Renee, as the director of finance. And we also have a new chief development officer, and his name is Stefan Marks. So be on the lookout for all of those new hires. And that is all I have today.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson. Any questions of him? If not, Ride Finders?
Thank you. I'll be providing the update for Ride Finders. Ride Finders had a busy month last month. We did attend the Plan RVA night at the Diamond, and I appreciate Plan RVA having us there. It was an enjoyable night. Saw a lot of people there, and were able to distribute a lot of information about Ride Finder services. Also, last month was TDM week, where Ride Finder set up at a park and ride in Henrico County to welcome van pools as they came in and provided the riders with promotional items to thank them for van pooling and to be part of the TDM week. We met with the public affairs officer regarding the starting of van pools at the Fort Walker base that was formerly AP Hill. We also talked with the Department of Social Services as later this year, they're getting ready to relocate their offices from the city of Richmond to Henrico County, which was off of transit lines. So we were talking to them about, assisting them with carpool and van pool options. Still working on the replacement of a Ride Finder sign at Westover Hills Boulevard in the city of Richmond that was damaged due to a car accident here recently. So, working with VDOT on that. Working with Foursquare ITP on the Ride Finders 5-year strategic plan. As well, all staff volunteered at the new downtown transfer plaza center to help distribute information to riders about any of the changes that were coming there. And we started to schedule and gather data for grant applications for fiscal year 25. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions anybody may have.
Thank you, Mr. O'Keefe. Anybody else? Any other comments or anything? If not, we'll move to Sarah, if you have any last concluding comments.
Yeah, so I will send the actual update to Janice for you all to review. I forgot to do that and Nicole's on vacation, so I'm at a complete loss. But I will say a couple of quick things. Fall Line Trail, you guys know this better than I do, but funding on DB3 was moved to DB2. That was completed, I think, last month. In the I-64 news, tomorrow we have the groundbreaking ceremony for segment A, which is very exciting. And then you probably have gotten this from a couple of angles, but Virginia State Trails Office has put out a survey and they're doing planning documentation. They will have some public meetings coming up in the month of November. So we are looking for survey feedback. That would be wonderful. And then we do have scheduled meetings statewide. The Richmond meeting will be November 2nd from 6 to 7:30. And that's everything from me.
Okay, I don't really have topics for any other meeting. I do apologize. I had a little computer issue getting hooked into
Mr. Chair, I'm so sorry. I'm just getting word that the groundbreaking was postponed. My mistake. Sorry, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Can I ask a quick
I just
question?
apologize for logging in kind of late this morning. That just had issues with my computer. Any other comments or discussion? Barb?
Do you know, Sarah or Tiffany, when the trail survey closes? It must be pretty late if you've got meetings in November.
Barb, I'm not sure I can get back to you today.
Okay, and then the meeting in November on November 2nd, 6 to 7:30, where will that be? At the district?
It does not specify. I'll get that back to you as well.
Okay, thanks.
With that, our next meeting is November 14th at 9 o'clock. And if there's no other comments, we can adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.
Have a good
Bye.
day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.